Zach.
All right, my name is ZKent, and I did my project on changing trends in ACL reconstruction. So just first, a little background. Your ACL is one of the four major ligaments that is in your knee. It's actually the biggest one, and it's the anterior cruciate ligament is what it's actually called. It's the one that's right between the two bones, your tibia and your femur, and it is in the front as opposed to the PCL, which is in the back. It really serves to stabilize your knee because it's one of the biggest joints in your body, and serves as almost like a cushion when you're playing sports, doing any like high impact, fast cutting motions. So basically, I decided to do my internship around ACL because I had an experience of my own last year where I tore my ACL, and it's not a fun process, and it's a long 6 months of recovery. But I thought it was interesting the whole time I was going through it. I always kind of paid attention to, what the doctors were telling me, what the physical therapists were saying, just because this was something completely new to me, and I had never experienced an injury like this where it, required intensive rehab. And so it kind of got me thinking, I understood how the process worked, but I didn't understand like why anything was happening. So I kind of knew that I wanted to do something like this for my internship, but I wasn't sure exactly what. So it took me a while to finally actually decide, okay, this is what I'm definitely going to do, because I tried a few different paths before that. But I just thought it was interesting to be able to see the actual surgical procedure and then hopefully get an understanding of why certain things were done rather than just, how the process works. So my mentor is Dr. Eric Carson. He's a sports medicine specialist at the University of Virginia. He studied biology at Tufts University before going to medical school at the University of Illinois, and he actually did his joint internship residency at Harvard University before specializing in sports medicine and orthopedic surgery at Cornell. He was actually also a team surgeon for the New York Giants for a while, which I thought was pretty cool, before he ended up at UVA. So I actually didn't know that he was going to be my internship when I went into my internship. So when I got there that day, I knew that I was going to be doing, shadowing surgeon, but I didn't know who, because what happened was I kind of like exhausted all my resources. I tried several different avenues of, how to get a mentor. And I ended up contacting Mr. John Duma, who's a nurse at the outpatient center, and I asked him, do you think any surgeons would be willing to work with me, and maybe I could see some ACL reconstructions. And surgeons' schedules were pretty full, so I wasn't sure if it was going to work out, but he decided to talk to a few guys, Dr. Vidup and Dr. Carson, and they agreed to let me do it. So, when I got there, he wanted to get me in on a day that there was going to be some ACL reconstructions. So, I had to wait for a while because, you don't just get ACL reconstructions all the time. So I went in, and so when I got there, it was, really early in the morning. Surgeons usually, have like 12-hour days in the operating room. So I got there, Mr. Duma, still dark out. We went in, there was like a little vending machine with like all the scrubs or whatever. And, you had to like press in a number, and it would like spit you out some pants and a shirt. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I got scrubbed in, and we went into the operating room, and it was just such a relaxed environment. It totally like surprised me, because when I thought of an operating room, I thought, like being really intense and really paying attention to what you were doing. But I got in there, and they were like playing music and just having a good time and like talking. And I was like, God, I wonder if this is what it's gonna be like all day. And it was, which was really cool. It helped me like relax and situate myself for being on my feet and, watching for 12 hours. So when I first got there, the first two cases that I saw were not ACLs, but they kind of gave me a chance to like settle in and figure out what I was going to be doing the rest of the day. They were actually shoulder repairs. One was a labrum tear, and the other one was a rotator cuff injury. And I kind of spent those two cases just like working my way around and figuring out, like what I can and cannot do. So they basically told me stay away from anything blue. Like if I touched anything blue, it was just like the whole, surgery was stopped. They had to go like restart, and it would be completely my fault. So I just tried to stay away. I kind of like established a corner when I got in there, and I tried to stay to myself. And there was even times where I was like moving around trying to get pictures, and I didn't think I was close enough to bother anything. And they would like the nurses that were scrubbed in would like move the stuff away from me. And I was like, okay, sorry, I didn't know I was that close. But so that was pretty funny. So then finally, after I watched the 2 shoulder reconstructions, I went in with Dr. Carson for the first ACL, and that was a hamstring graft operation. And I thought it was really interesting because I never imagined like that's what it looked like when they were doing it to me, because I thought of it as kind of like a delicate procedure, like it's an orthopedic procedure. It's not, you're not rushing, you're not under that much pressure, but like it was rough. Like they used a lot more force than I would imagine when doing something like that. I thought it was kind of cool. And the other thing that was interesting was that Dr. Carson, you can see, is over there in the middle picture working and looking at the arthroscope cameras. But the guy to his like closest to where I was taking the picture is actually a resident. And the residents actually do most of the work during a procedure, which I thought was cool because this is like the time when they're like specializing in what they want to do, and they're really learning how to do the operations themselves. So Dr. Carson just kind of like sat back and almost like me just watched them do what they were doing until it got to a part where he didn't think that they were ready to do it, or if they started to struggle, he would step in and help. Like I remember Dr. Carson was still over there looking at the MRIs of one guy's knee, and the other guy was in there with the arthroscopic tools, and he was like shaving away the torn ligament. And he was like, well, I remember he was saying to another resident, he was like, well, I'm not sure if this is the PCL or if this is part of the torn ACL. And he was like right about to just go ahead and like shave it away before Dr. Carson was like, no, stop what you're doing right now. And like he took over because he was about to just completely sever the other ligament. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and it was definitely not what I was expecting, but I think the whole atmosphere and the environment while I was there was really friendly and comfortable, and I had a really good experience. So this kind of led to my research. I did, where has ACL reconstruction been and where is it going? And it really helped that while I was at the outpatient center, there were I saw 2 ACL reconstructions, and one was a hamstring graft and the other was a patella tendon graft, which is what I had. So it really helps to be able to see both, and I got to already start to like compare, and I talked to the different nurses and Mr. Doom and Dr. Carson, about each one and the difference in the procedure. And it's really not a whole big difference. There's certain drawbacks and, benefits to each, but this is kind of where I started my research, and I kind of took it from a standpoint of like analyzing where it's been to predict where it's going in the future, because as early as like the mid 1900s, people that tore their ACLs wouldn't have any kind of surgery. They would just, what they were told was, strengthen your quad and the muscles around your knee so that they can support it, and without the cushion of the ligament, which to me, I couldn't imagine that. But it was actually, the earliest procedures were just really experimental. I think early 1900s, the very first time anyone tried to operate on a torn ACL, they used like a piece of silver wire with some braided silk to put it in there to see if that would work. But the problem is that once you put the graft in the knee, it has to ligamentize. Like it actually turns back into a ligament when you put it in there. But with foreign material like silk and silver wire, the body just kind of rejects it. So it wasn't until really recently that they started using like autogenous tissue grafts from other parts of the body that wouldn't be rejected as badly. And that's the majority of what I focused on my research. So not only are these some pretty interesting pictures that I got, but these are actually specific to the 2 different techniques. So on the far side over there is a hamstring graft, and that's what it looks like when they take 2 strips of your hamstring and kind of fold them over on top of each other to put them where the ACL would have been, and it ligamentizes into what was there before. And the other one is a patella tendon graft where they go in. There's actually like the top of your femur, your kneecap, and then the bottom of your tibia, there's a patella tendon in between there. And they actually have like a bone saw, and they like saw out the chunks of the bone on either end and then just kind of like peel it out, and that's what they use. So like each one kind of had its own benefits, but I talked to Mr. Duma, and they started using patella tendon grafts first, and then they started to move towards hamstring because the hamstring ends up being stronger than the patella tendon, but it also takes longer for you to recover. So really, when you go into ACL reconstruction surgery, the surgeon like asks you, which one you prefer. It's kind of up to you because they went back and forth for a while, but now I found out that they use them pretty equally. There's not really a huge disparity between the two, and so I concluded that orthopedic surgery is like the success of an orthopedic operation is measured on the person's ability to return to the level of activity that they were previously at. And ACL reconstruction is actually considered a not very successful procedure. First of all, it's really new, like I've already said, but it's only, I think, 70 to 80% of people who undergo this procedure return to their previous level of activity. So I think that technology in the operating room and things that will just make the operation more precise are really going to be the only things that further this operation to a more successful percentage. There were things in the operating room that I saw, like they had the little C-arm X-ray machines that helped them find the right places, like the right angles to drill the femoral tunnels to anchor down the grafts. And there's just little pieces of technology like that that help to make the surgeon's job easier and will hopefully make this operation more successful. So for my community service, I had a hard time figuring out what I was going to do that would kind of tie in with sports medicine. So I kind of had to back off the whole ACL thing for a little bit and go to a more general topic. And Mr. Caraway actually suggested Special Olympics to me, and I kind of fought it at first, but I'm really glad that I ended up doing it. So I contacted the director of the Shenandoah Valley region of Virginia Special Olympics and asked him, what events that are in the near future that I could help with. And he told me that there was going to be a tennis tournament at the Boar's Head in Charlottesville coming up. That was in January. And I was like, okay, that sounds cool. Like it'll be, just a tennis tournament. I'll go help do whatever they need, watch the tennis. It'll be fun. And then when I got there, it was just completely different than what I expected. Like I got there and one of the very first things that he said to me was, at this tournament, we only take the best. People had to try out and they had to be selected, and they came from all over the country. There was tennis players from California, Colorado, and even previously they said they had a team from Switzerland come out, and they had them broken up in the brackets on skill level. So there was there was 5 or 6 brackets of 4 people each that would go and compete, and it was just incredible how competitive it was. And I basically worked with 2 interns from JMU that were working in Special Olympics as a part of their sports management or sports business programs at JMU. And what I would do is I would help check in the athletes, make sure they were on time and where they were supposed to be, and I would record the scores from each game and run them up. And Microsoft was actually there testing out some new software that would store tournament information and do seeding and everything. So that was pretty cool. So I ran that up to them. What they were trying to do was put all the information in their system until it broke, and then they would figure out what was wrong with it. So that was a pretty cool thing that I got to do. But I worked really closely with the athletes, and what really, I thought it was cool that not only were they really competitive, but just this amount of sportsmanship and enthusiasm that they had was incredible. And it was kind of inspiring because, being an athlete, it's not always easy to, look at your opponent after you lose and, tell them how good of a job they did. So it was just an overall great experience, and it was incredible being at the Boar's Head, which is such a nice facility that UVA's tennis team actually uses. And this is a picture of the championship game in the highest division, which it was just incredible to me how great they were at tennis, and it was the highest level of tennis I've ever seen in person. So it was a really fun experience, and I got to go back for 3 or 4 days to work this tournament. So for my legacy, I wasn't sure how I was going to tie in, what I did and bring it back for something that could happen for years and years and years and be beneficial to the community. But while I was doing my community service, I realized that there was groups of kids from different schools that would come in and they would volunteer to be ball boys and girls for the different matches. And there was a lady there that was coordinating that. So I talked to her and asked her, do you schedule these school trips to come in and work these games? And she told me yes. So I got the idea of contacting Coach Pace and Mr. Blaha at the school here they're in charge of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes Club. And I decided that it might be a cool idea to get them involved with Special Olympics Virginia and maybe have a trip each year to this tournament to have them, do some of that ball boy and volunteer work. And it's not gonna, unfortunately, it's not gonna be taking place for a while because this is an annual event in January. And but I do have Coach Pace in contact with both the regional supervisor and the event coordinator for the Boar's Head that works with Special Olympics Virginia. So hopefully that'll all work out nicely. And I do plan on going to talk to all of them at one of their meetings in the near future to hopefully, bring some excitement and get some kids ready to go work this tournament because I had an awesome time and I think that everyone else would too. So my learning and reflection, I think looking back on it, it was all an incredible experience, and I don't think I want to be a surgeon or a doctor. I think that's just too much. It's too tedious, and you're on your feet for like 12 hours a day, and it's a lot of school. So I think that, although it was awesome and I couldn't imagine doing something different for my senior project, I don't think that the medical field is necessarily for me. So I'm kind of glad that I did that just to kind of finally rule that out. Like, that's not what I want to do. But other than that, it was just an awesome experience. And I think for future seniors, it's important to get things done. I had a hard time at the beginning just thinking something was going to like fall into my lap and I was just going to be able to go with it from there. But you really have to get after it. And I can't, stress enough how important it is to email people and be persistent and even be annoying. Like, you just have to annoy them until they're finally like, all right, I'll like entertain the idea of letting you follow me around for a while. So, and then, well, the other thing is it's important to use contacts. Like, I was kind of timid to try to call in a favor from Mr. Duma, but I think I learned that it's kind of really is about who you know. And I think going into college next year, I think networking is one of the most important things you can do while you're at college because you're going to meet so many successful and intelligent people that'll be able to help you out the rest of your life with career opportunities and business opportunities and everything. So I think it's important that this project can teach you that. Not everyone will use it, but it's something that I'm really grateful for, and I look forward to using those skills the next 40 years. So, that's the end. Any questions?
What do you see yourself?
Well, I'm going to University of Virginia next year, and I'm not exactly sure what I want to do. I think I want to do something in the comm school, but I know all their majors are competitive, so hopefully I can get in here and we'll see how it goes.
Well, your knowledge of the ACL and the different parts is very, very extensive. So that's one of my questions. Did you see yourself? You answered that question.
Yeah. Well, it was actually difficult doing my research because all the documents that you can find to do research like that, I mean, they're written by medical professionals, and having no medical experience, it was difficult having to like weed through all that to find something that was like said in plain words that I could understand and then apply to what I already knew. So
your descriptions were great. I'm interested though more in the emergency. I mean, in the operator, you talked about using great force.
Oh yeah.
What do you mean by?
Like when they were, because you have at one point obviously you have to get the graphs out, and so these pictures that I had on this slide up in the top, those are the two different types of graphs that they used. And in order to get them out, it was like just incredible to me how like they just weren't delicate at all. Like to get the hamstrings out, they had that little incision in like the lower side of your knee, and they would actually tie the sutures to the end of the hamstring at the very top and literally just peel it off. Like they just, and it made the worst noise. Like that was really hard. It made a horrible noise, and they would just peel it off. And there was even one point they were trying to get the patella tendon graft out after they had cut the bone, and they kind of had like a pick in there, and they had a hammer, and they were just kind of like just get it out that way. And I was like, that looks rough. I knew then why it hurt so bad when you wake up the next, in a few hours. So.
And why do they give the patient the choice of the kick?
Because I think it really depends on like what you're trying to recover for. Like I know in my case, I tore my ACL in the fall, and I was trying to return for a sport in the spring. And the patella tendon graft, they told me, you end up healing a little bit quicker, but it's not as strong at the end. So I chose a patella tendon graft because I wanted to be able to play, you know, in the spring. It actually ended up taking me only 5 months to get back to playing, so that was nice. But you know, there's drawbacks to either one. Like obviously with a hamstring graft, you lose some flexibility. I mean, it's difficult either way, but it's a whole lot better than what it used to be.